talk of dreams.
Too secret and too close.
Come, civil night, come.
Give me my sin again.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean.
She is a Capulet.
His name is Romeo. And a Montague.
I have been feasting with mine enemy.
Dost thou love me?
By yonder blessed moon I vow this.
Bounty is as boundless as the sea.
Let Romeo hence in haste, else when he is found, that hour is his last.
Can I go forward when my heart is here?
Shame come to Romeo.
Shall I speak ill of him that is my husband?
Peace!
Peace. I hate the word.
Or will you walk?
Love will give me strength. Give me my Romeo.
Hello and welcome to this BFI at Home discussion of the National Theatre's new interpretation of Romeo and Juliet, which is now an original 90-minute film coming to television to be shown on Sky Arts on Easter Sunday. I'm Emma Bullymore, I'm your host for today, and I have a really wonderful panel about to join me to discuss this film, which is a first for the National Theatre. It's really innovative. I cannot wait for you to see it. You may know that this production of Romeo and Juliet was due to take place at the National Theatre last summer 2020 at the Olivier, but it couldn't go ahead. And you know the story there, COVID restrictions. But something good has come out of this. It has been turned into this sensational experience made specifically for the screen at the theatre. And I'm going to talk to the panel about how this version came about, the creative choices that they made, and the amazing way that they blended film and theatre to produce this incredible version of one of the world's favourite plays. So let's do this. Let me introduce you to the panel. I'm joined first of all by director Simon Godwin. Simon is the artistic director of the Shakespeare Theatre Company in Washington and also an associate director at the National Theatre, where he has directed many, many productions, including Twelfth Night and Antony and Cleopatra. Hello, Simon.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hello. Jessie Buckley is with us. Jessie has won plaudits for lots of her roles, but particularly her incredible performance in hit series Chernobyl. And she was BAFTA nominated for her role in the film Wild Rose. Jessie plays Juliet in this production. Hello, Jessie.
Hi.
Hello. Josh O'Connor is with us. Josh recently won a Golden Globe and a Critics' Choice Award for his performance as Prince Charles in Netflix hit series The Crown, and he plays Romeo in this production. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
Hello. And we're also joined by Lucian Msamati, who plays Friar Lawrence. Lucian has appeared in many, many National Theatre productions, and you'll have seen him on TV in lots of roles, including Game of Thrones, Gangs of London, and his Dark Materials. Hello, Lucian.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so excited to discuss this with you today. Simon, let me start with you. Obviously, a huge disappointment when this wasn't able to go ahead. How long did it take until you started to think maybe there's still life in this, maybe there's another version?
Well, so the stage production was due to go into rehearsals, I think, in June, and it was in April that that was cancelled. But from the moment that the play was cancelled, actually there was immediately a feeling of what can be rescued, what can still happen. And so through the kind of audacious brilliance of the National Theatre and David Sable, who is the producer of the film, the executive producer of the film, and Rufus Norris, and all these great kind of intelligences came together and thought, well, how can we find something still to do? And slowly, the idea was born of potentially some kind of film version of the play, which would go beyond, as it were, the NT Live series, and actually move closer towards a new hybrid of theatre and film.
Because of course you could just point a camera at the stage and that would have been exciting in its own way. But why did you feel, no, we're going to do something different here?
We felt we had to kind of acknowledge where we were, that this was a situation in which theatres were closed, that there were no audiences in theatres, there were no artists in theatres. So an idea of starting very honestly, as we do in the film, with a group of actors arriving in a shuttered theatre, in an empty theatre, in a way telling the story of Romeo and Juliet for themselves, almost as a ritual of solidarity. And slowly then the concept came to us all that maybe if we started like that, as the story unfolds, the world could in fact become more and more cinematic. We could build locations on the Lyttelton stage where we begin, and gradually we'll step into this extraordinary, almost dreamlike Verona. But the plan was to follow the character's journey with our own.
And how many of your original ideas for the stage production were you able to carry through, or did you have to scrap that and start again?
We pretty much had to scrap that and start again. Josh and Jessie were two of the original members of the cast, so they were cast ready to go onto the stage. And actually, Josh, Jessie and I had a series with David Sable of Zooms where we talked about, well, how could we start this journey from a stage to the screen? And then we eventually, quite late notice, I think it was in August, that we eventually got the green light to go ahead. That was when I reached out to Lucian and persuaded him to join us, which he brilliantly did. And then there we were, rehearsing in October to film in November. So it was a whirlwind.
Josh, let me bring you in. This was to be your National Theatre debut. So, I mean, you must have been gutted. But how quickly were you able to kind of visualise what Simon was talking about? Could you see it working as a film?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably Simon, Jessie and I all had moments in the early sort of Zoom chats, and I'm sure Lucian probably did once he was on board. I think everyone would have done at any point, of kind of like, God, how is this going to work? And, you know, ultimately it was new for everyone. You know, for me, I hadn't done a play for 5 years. And so going back into a theatre was like a really exciting thing for me. But for many of the sort of team from the National, they'd never made a film before. And for many of the guys, the film team, our cinematographer had never done anything to do with the theatre before. So we had all these kind of like, we had two worlds that came together in a really beautiful way. And so there were definitely moments of doubt. But I think to me, there was always this kind of, I suppose, like a constant confidence, like I guess a quiet confidence that regardless of whatever it was. I mean, I remember like we fought for the rehearsal period, and I remember that being something we all agreed on, that was, you know, irrespective of being able to share this with an audience, as important as sharing it with an audience is the process of rehearsal. And so I suppose because of that, I think we just cracked on, and I don't think there was a point where, even if we did have insecurities, I don't think we shared them really, because it was just this feeling of unity and you know, in amongst the kind of madness of COVID. And here we were in this empty building, which is usually so full and holds such emotional memory for all of us. And we were keeping it alight. And so I think just because of that, we all just cracked on.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife.
Jessie, did it change the way you prepared for your performance at all?
No, I think I would have, you know, tried to find a human being, whether it was on theatre or on film. I guess the process of, I mean, and it was, I've never had that before, but we had our cinematographer with us from day one of rehearsals. And that was really like and completely new, fresh, and has, I mean, if I could do every job where I had that kind of relationship with the cinematographer and be engaged with the visual world that we were going to be creating through the camera from an early stage. I think film can learn a lot from it, you know, and to have that relationship with somebody who you're ultimately painting a canvas with in a, you know, moving narrative way. So that was probably the biggest change, but in every sense. But with regards to who she was, I came in not knowing who she was, and but I feel like I've like with everyone, you kind of hope that you'll come away with a bit of them and learn something new through them. And yeah.
Lucian, I'm interested to ask you, because I know you performed at the National Theatre many times, and quite recently at the Lyttelton, which is where this was filmed. You're engaging in a very familiar space, but in a different way, with the camera there, and you're taking us behind the scenes, behind the curtain. What was that like for you?
It was strange. It was passing strange. It was really beautiful, because it was familiar, it was comfortable, but at the same time, I suppose we all felt that you're seeing the same space in a completely different light.
Mm.
Suddenly, the spaces that would normally have been the scene blocks are suddenly also sets, are suddenly also alive, suddenly also have a character, also have a spirit, suddenly are also part of telling the story. And so, in a way, if I'm entirely honest, it was kind of like being let into the playground after dark with full access to everything.
Yeah.
That was the joyous bit.
It must have been odd as well, being on a stage, but with no audience, but with a camera. It's confusing almost.
Well, yes and no, because on the one hand, we were all very aware of where we were, as Josh said. You know, you're walking into this space that's always full of life, and you step back into it, and it feels almost like you're in the catacombs, weirdly.
Mm.
But at the same time, the moment there are people there, the moment there are actors, technicians, costume folk, designers, suddenly the life's blood returns. Suddenly it felt like being in the longest technical rehearsal ever, because that's the moment at which everybody, all of us, get to inhabit the space before we give it over to the audience. And so that again was a little bit of the old with a little bit of the new.
Simon, you were collaborating with Tim Siddell on this as your director of photography and this amazing creative team. I mean, obviously you're a very experienced director, but how much did this particular style stretch you and change you as a director?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I had never picked up a camera before. I'd never even directed a short film. I hadn't had any relationship to that technology or way of storytelling at all. I was the least kind of technically savvy director or person probably at the National Theatre. So it was really quite a surprise to be suddenly confronted with this opportunity to direct my first film, as it were. And so Tim was wonderful. He was there, as Jessie said, from the beginning of rehearsals. And he basically put me through film school. We had 4 weeks of rehearsal, and he and I would meet early in the morning, and it would be as perfunctory as him saying, this is a close-up. This is a medium shot. This is a wide shot. It's like, oh, right. He even at one point put a moment found a kind of loo roll to explain to me about lenses and long lenses and short lenses. So, I mean, it was pretty basic. But fortunately, through Tim's generosity of spirit and the generosity of spirit of the whole company, because so many of the company were extremely experienced screen actors, I could develop an understanding of this way of telling a story. But there were some moments, I mean, I remember early on in our rehearsals when everyone seemed to be talking very quietly. And I said to Tamsin Greg, could you I think you might need to be a bit louder. I mean, and she said, well, Simon, we don't need to be louder because we're not going to be on stage. We're going to have a microphone here. This is the whole point of film. Which is, so there were these lots of moments when I had to change my practice from being basically somebody who was enlarging things all the time for the person on the back row of the audience to see. I became a miniaturist, going in the opposite direction of, this is all about the close, in a way that the theatre is in some sense all about the distant.
And is there anything sort of aside from the technicals that you would take forward into other theatre work, do you think?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I think there was, Josh spoke about the kind of mad, heady confidence of the collective and in a moment of time. And of course, we had a great script by William Shakespeare. We had a brilliant adaptation by Emily Burns that created the screenplay out of an edit that she had done for the stage. So there were lots of amazing sort of scaffolding, but how would I do things differently? I would try and capture and rediscover, if possible, the enormous appreciation of creativity, because I think being in that shuttered theatre, being in that empty space, gave all of us a feeling of charge, that touch, storytelling, discovery, all of these things mattered. And we so often forget, don't we, that boldness is rewarded in life. And if I have one thing to take from this, it would be to try and be always as bold when I return to the stage.
Well, that's a good lesson for all of us, I think. Josh, you talked about having this rehearsal period, but then when it came down to it, just 17 days to film. What were the biggest challenges? Were there any particular scenes that were difficult to nail?
Again, I'm like the worst person to like recall any bad moments, because all I can recall is like heaven from beginning to end. But I'm sure there were difficult days. There were definitely. Well, this actually, I mean, I'm basically going to answer. I'm going to reject your question and offer you an answer to another question, but it's kind of linked, because there was I don't want to speak for Fisayo, but Fisayo Akiade, who's another exceptional actor who's worked at the National many times, and worked with Simon before as well. Fisayo and I would sort of have these kind of back and forth as we were rehearsing, and then Fisayo came to me one day when we were filming. I think we were rehearsing on camera, and Fizz came to me and was like, I'm really struggling with the Queen Mab speech, which he is exceptional at and brilliant. And I was surprised he was coming to me about the Queen Mab speech. But he came to me and he was like, I'm concerned about the camera and how much should I do, and how little should I do, and how should I pull it back, and should I not move so much? I feel like everything's kind of getting smaller. And I was like, well, maybe it is, and it probably is in many ways. It will be. And I don't know. I don't think I gave very much advice at all, to be honest, other than just try. You're a terrific actor, and I'm sure it'll be brilliant. And lo and behold, he did kind of one take, and it was exceptional. It was like a masterpiece. What he produced was so special. And what I just remember it kind of, I guess, in answer to your question, it's like there was this attitude of, as Simon says, being bold, and this kind of can-do attitude that no matter what it was, we were reaching out to each other, and there was no element of like suffering in silence, which often happens on a film set because it's so manic and there are so many people and things are done quickly, and there's this constant sense of time is money. And although I was unable to give Fizz any good advice, really, it didn't matter. The fact that he felt able to kind of voice a concern about, like, what does this even mean? Like, what's the difference in this space? Is a credit to the environment Simon created and the environment we all created together. And I think that was just sort of, I guess, any sort of tough moments didn't feel tough because they were just sort of addressed in a really open and helpful way.
Fantastic. Jessie, can I talk to you about the score? Because the music is incredible in this. It really kind of heightens what you guys are achieving. And I know your voice is on it as well, your singing voice. I mean, how moved were you by what was created there?
Like it was a collaborative, the thing, like just going on from what Josh said and what we've all been saying is, because this has been such an heightened year, it forced us to inhabit a space that we had to recreate something new, and everything that was expected was lost, and what we were left was an opportunity to create something collaboratively in all scopes, in the script adaptation with each other, in moments where we thought, what was in a rehearsal would change again when we came to set, and being available to all that. And the music was no different, as a kind of exploration about how we got there. And it came from a feeling that we were creating within the room. And Michael Bruce, who's the composer on it, was fantastic. And it was more a sharing kind of to help create this new world that we were building together. I don't know, Simon, you probably could talk more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, I think we were faced with this very peculiar, in a way, challenge of doing a film of Romeo and Juliet in Verona with never leaving the inside of a theatre. So there was no natural light, for example, available to us. And that became, the phrase that I recalled was the obstacle is the way. And that became, a kind of a sort of mantra in a way. And the music came from Jessie's extraordinary voice, of course, and Michael listening to that and us talking dramaturgically about how the music and the voice could combine. And also the actors would often bring pieces of music that they were touched by. And we would run scenes to music that people had had a relationship with their own lives. And Michael would then, as it were, respond to that in the score. So the score itself contains many influences.
Saints have hands. Pilgrims' hands do touch. And palm to palm is holy Palmer's kiss.
Heard, I mean, how collaborative it was as an experience, and also how fundamental that rehearsal time was. Did it feel that rehearsal time was key in creating this feeling of confidence and helping you go forward?
Absolutely. I think that is, if there is a takeaway in this wonderful hybrid between the world of film and the world of theatre, really, the world of theatre, because it is immediate, and because it is ongoing and organic and every day, the blood and guts of it is people, is spending time together, unpicking those words, building the scene, sitting in the canteen at lunchtime, having a drink in the bar afterwards, all that. But key to the lifeblood of it is the rehearsal time, and that's something which, having spoken to a lot of friends and colleagues who, and I'm very aware that we are amongst the privileged who've been able to practice our craft. So people aren't really talking about missing the money. They're not talking about missing the crowds, the buzz. They're talking about missing being in the room with other people making stuff.
And I'm interested to talk to all of you about the decision to stage Romeo and Juliet, because it is a classic play. You don't need to have ever been to the theatre to know this story. Simon, there must be a pressure to draw something new out of this material while also honouring what is a classic text.
Yes, and in a way, having this very particular, Brecht talks about don't start from the good old things, start from the bad new things when you're conceptualizing a piece of work. And we were given this very immediate context in which to look at the play through the lens of. And for me, coming to the play in this change moment, it felt that the play really spoke about love in a sense that it embodies love. There is a kind of substantiation of love in the text. And I felt like what the world needs is a story about being held, wanting to be held, being lifted. And yes, the story is a tragedy, but there is a very tangible feeling of the heart in it. And I felt it was that chord, that resonance. And then, of course, there are all kinds of love in the play, not just between Romeo and Juliet, but between Romeo and the friar, between, in our version, Mercutio and Benvolio, between Lady Capulet and Juliet, between Juliet and the nurse, all complicated, strange kinds of love, but they're all there. And it felt like our job was to sort of bring all of that out and make it a hymn to the heart.
Do not swear at all. Although I joy in thee, I've no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say it lightens. Sweet, good night.
Oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied?
What satisfaction canst thou have tonight?
The exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine.
I gave thee mine, before thou didst request it. And yet I would it were to give again.
Wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love?
But to be frank and give it thee again. And yet I wish but for the thing I have. My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have. For both are infinite. I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu. Anon, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true, stay but a little. I will come again.
I am afeard. Being in night, all this is but a dream, too flattering sweet to be substantial.
If that thy bent of love be honourable, thy purpose marriage, Send word for me tomorrow by one that I'll procure to come to thee, where and what time thou wilt perform the rite, and all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. Anon, I come. Romeo.
My dear.
At what o'clock tomorrow shall I send to thee?
By the hour of 9.
I will not fail.
For you, Josh, Romeo, such a famous character. So many people have played him before. What did you tap into? What inspired you in that performance?
Well, I suppose that like there was the discovery of love, like, or the rediscovery of love. Actually, I suppose I often feel like Romeo and Juliet can be. I keep saying this, so Jessie's probably sick of this, but I sometimes feel like productions of Romeo and Juliet can be lazy, and that's not to slag off all productions of Romeo and Juliet, but there's a laziness insofar as if you immediately make the decision to go, these are two young characters, these are two young people who have fallen in love for the first time, you can sometimes fall into a slight sort of hole in just playing this one note of they are just naive and that there's a foolishness about them, and you get this slightly sort of like the kind of pedantic parents, and and they die for each other because they're naive and they're young and they think this is what love is all about. But actually, well, first of all, I think it's more than that, regardless of whether they're young or old. But also, it was just exciting to me that it's like, so what are the other yeah, that could be one, but what are the other reasons, and what else is there? And Jessie and I kind of kept sort of finding in these moments, and I remember Simon saying it very early on, it's this sort of that their love together is a new type of love, that there's something exciting about what this love is. Not that it's kind of what love is generally, because it is different and inevitably it's unique, no matter who you meet or no matter who you share it with. But the discovery and the creation of a certain type of love is that's more thrilling than anything, and therefore more has to be protected at all costs. And so there was that, and then there was on top of this the idea, sorry, I'm more talking about the obstacles that were in the way, but which, as Simon says, obstacles under Simon's direction are like a treat and the most exciting things and something to be celebrated. So that's good. So but these were obstacles. So what another one of them was, which really excited me, was the idea of death, and that death isn't an end, that death is a hopeful choice, that actually that final scene between Romeo and Juliet of dying doesn't have to be tragic. I mean, it is tragic from everyone else's point of view, but it's a choice. It's a hopeful choice for Romeo and Juliet. They believe that this is a mark of their love. This is their life will continue. And so those sorts of obstacles really excited me. And also, I guess with a lot of Shakespeare, it is about, there is something really beautiful about being a member of a kind of a family of actors who have played Romeo, and there will be hundreds, thousands of actors afterwards who will play him. And I guess I sort of saw this as my last chance. I turned 30 last year. I feel just starting to push it a little bit. But so yeah, so there's all those, but they were the reasons really.
You've got a long time till King Lear. You're fine, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Jessie, did you find similarly exciting challenges when you were approaching Juliet? Yeah,
I mean, I kind of was desperate to do love. I was hungry for love. And it was I guess as artists or creatives, we're not the best pieces of art are ones that reflect the times that we're in. And in a weird way, this story was marrying our reality that we were living. We've all spoken today about the need of each other and the need of loving something and the privilege of being able to do something that we love. And here we were in a building that was dark for the first time ever, in a world that had been dark for the first time ever, where the kind of swarm of fear and death was constantly echoing in every aspect around us. And yet this story was the catapult to allow us to find that need to love again. And these two, it was beautiful. Like, and I think it, there was, I mean, I cycled into work every morning. I was like, I genuinely felt like I need to tell this story now. Like, I need this. This isn't just this is a need for us all as people in the world. We need love, we need each other. And it was like, that felt like it fueled everything, you know, against all your fears. And of course, you're always going to be, I'm always scared, whatever job I do. But like, when you feel like that, it overrides any fear.
Lucian, were you similarly inspired when you were trying to find Friar Lawrence?
Oh, absolutely. It's, I have to say, what appeals to me more than anything about this production and the time we spent together is that it's incredibly sexy. And what I mean by sexy is it's not about the pumping blood of lust or how beautiful everybody is. It is that it is real and it matters and there are stakes. And I think that is to commit any act, I believe, any great act or any act of exertion from a place of love is so much harder to do than it is from a place of hate or discontent. That's easy. But, you know, I mean, I think of the two of my favorite scenes with my two awesome playmates, you know, the scene where Romeo comes into the friar's cell and has a knife. And the friar has to convince him not to top himself. Similarly, when Juliet comes to the friar and says, I don't know what to do, I'm going to take my life. Suddenly, you know, here is a father figure going, okay, I am a representative of the establishment, of law, of order, of morality. But I love these kids. I love them. And I know that they're in love. And in order for me to express my full and true love, in order for me to be true to the passion in me towards them, I have to disregard every single law that I have upheld and risk my own life, risk my own reputation, risk my own value system. And that, for me, is incredibly sexy. It's incredibly powerful, incredibly sexy, because it means something. It means something. And I think, you know, we've spoken about it. You know, I think one of the hardest things, actually, being back in such a familiar space, was having to police intimacy in amongst ourselves. You know, you know, you're always hugging, high-fiving, putting your arms around people, dancing, fighting too. But to be in that space and it suddenly made every single physical act sacred and holy. Yeah. And I believe that transmits in what is captured on camera. So basically what I'm saying is, more sex, please, Bika.
Simon, I know how important it is to the National Theatre to reach a wide audience, and NT Live has been doing incredible things for years, taking shows into cinemas. Obviously, this is stepping that up a level. It's going to be in people's living rooms. It's free on Sky Arts. How excited are you for this production to reach a much bigger audience than maybe it could have done just being on stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think for theatres around the world right now, we're all thrilled that through digital work, we can reach a much wider audience than we've ever done before. And I think that a lot of the energy and passion and heartfulness that we've all been talking about today is absolutely, I hope, ready to be, I think Jessie used the phrase, catapulted into people's living rooms through this play, which was, of course, and is such an inviting, universal, generous, entertaining play, and has been since Shakespeare wrote it. So it's great to be part of a tradition of making this very popular play, hopefully even more popular.
And Josh, how do you feel about bringing Shakespeare to younger audiences? Do you think that's important? Because lots of people would say, you know, you can have your pick of any script, and yet it's interesting that you've gone back to do Shakespeare.
Yeah, well, the most inspiring piece of theatre, or the most life-changing piece of theatre I ever saw was Shakespeare. And I was like, my dad's an English teacher, and he is a big sort of Shakespeare fan, obviously. And so my whole life, it was like, you know, at school it was about studying the text of Shakespeare, which of course is the dullest thing in the world. But actually, or it's not really, but at that time when you're a teenager, it's awful. And then I had this amazing experience where I went to the RSC and I saw Tim Supple's Midsummer Night's Dream, which was in something like 25 different Indian dialects. And so I didn't understand a word. Like, I didn't understand a word before. I certainly didn't understand a word now. And yet I came away from it with this sort of like I just experienced real life magic. It was sensational and mind blowing. And it just kind of changed everything for me. And I do think that Shakespeare more than any other sort of playwright or any other kind of theatre for young people can open the door to the magic of the power of what a story can do. I mean, they're the greatest stories, but also I just think there's no hiding really. It's like it's full, it's complete, and as we've sort of alluded to, Romeo and Juliet there's no like, it's not like subtle emotion. This is like the real stuff. This is like proper, and there's no kind of backing away. And so, in that sense, I hope that the combination of Lucian's sort of sexiness and and all of our kind of efforts to like bring this into like what is real love essentially. Hopefully that will attract lots of kind of younger lot to get into it.
And Jessie, you've all spoken so passionately about how well this worked, this hybrid of film and theatre, even beyond the pandemic, when theatre audiences can come back. Would you like to do a version like this of other productions you're working on? Do you think it's the future in a way?
Yeah, it's totally open, like exploded my mind. And you know, theatre and filming and storytelling is my family, and I can't do it without anybody else. And the idea of being collaboratively creative is something that I feel the new ideas come through when we work together. You know, your own ideas live in your head, but when somebody else says, come over to my corner, and you meet in the middle and something completely unique between the two of you transposes, that's what the kind of how art, I guess, will transgress. So yeah, I absolutely do. And I think that feels really exciting. I really feel like I've learned a lot, and I have a lot more to learn, and I think it's exciting, and I have a lot of hope. I know it's been a struggling time, but if it's any indication what has come from this experience and what we've created having had to adapt, and I have a lot of hope. I'm really excited about the art and the humanity that might come out again from this. You know, we've all had to reimagine the world that we want to step out into after this pandemic might finish, and I'm excited to see where people's imagination has led them to, and hopefully share it with them.
Absolutely. And finally, and on that point, Lucian, I mean, this is born out of actors not being able to be on stage. We're at a point now where we can see a light at the end of that tunnel. How excited are you and your peers to get back on stage? And do you think that this period has sort of inspired a new connection between audiences and theatres as they kind of realise what they're missing?
Oh, absolutely. But I think we are, as much as this has been a great gift and a great catharsis, I think we are on the brink of quite a massive opportunity here, all of us. Mm-hmm. I think that the medium of film, what it has done, is that it has opened up a portal to a world that I think for a lot of people felt it wasn't for them, didn't belong to them, they couldn't access it, they couldn't understand it. I know personally from people who I've known for years, who would never set foot into any theatre in the world because they didn't think it was for them. Through these projects, I've gone, oh wow, I really like that. Oh, that's really interesting. So I really do think that we are at a point now where, in this great reset, we really have a chance to reset. We really have a chance to change the narratives, to open the doors, to reach out, to build new communities, because the world has continued to change. We don't need to talk about, we know all what has happened economically. politically in the world. And I do think that what we do more than ever is an important bridge. And being involved with projects that are this bold and that have this level of integrity, I think is the beginning of something quite amazing. And it is my sincere hope that we continue to push forward with the integrity and with the passion more than anything.
What a lovely optimistic note to leave it on. Thank you so much to you for your time. Thank you for joining us as well. To remind you, the National Theatre's exciting new production of Romeo and Juliet will premiere on Sky Arts in the UK on Easter Sunday. That's the 4th of April at 9 o'clock. It's absolutely free to view on Sky Arts, and it will also air on PBS in America on the 23rd of April. Thank you so much to you. Thank you to the BFI for hosting us. If you've enjoyed this discussion, and I really hope that you have, then maybe you might like to consider donating to the BFI because it's a charity organisation. The details will appear on your screen just now. But for now, thank you so much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.